Ambareesh Baliga is here to help us understand and decode what to expect from markets, because it seems, Mr. Baliga, that the bulls are a little guarded. There are days, there are moments within days that the bulls seem to be taking charge, and then the sentiment just changes immediately thereafter. What are you expecting from the mood on markets right now?
See, as far as the Nifty is concerned, I mean, at the broader end, I think 26,000 is a very difficult resistance level to cross
Right,
technically.
right.
When we say, I mean, difficult to cross, I would, you normally keep about 1% sort of a margin. So it goes to 26,200 levels, slightly higher than that. We have seen closer to all-time highs, but it doesn't cross that.
Right.
And I think the story is somewhere else, because we have seen the markets close to all-time highs,
Yeah.
but most of the portfolios are bleeding. And that's
Right.
because the retail and the HNIs have mostly invested in the small caps and the mid caps.
Right.
And that's where, I mean, the losses are huge as of now. And in the last couple of months, we have seen quite a few of them losing 20, 30, I mean, even 50% or more in some cases. So because of which the portfolios are bleeding. So because of which, I mean, if that continues for a while longer, maybe a month or 2 months more, you will actually start seeing liquidity slowing down. But then, if you look at the macros, you look at the Q2 earnings. Q2 earnings were better than what most of us had expected. Macro numbers continue to be good. So I think the market requires that one big trigger, and that one big trigger could be the US-India trade treaty, which again people were expecting by end of November. Now it seems like it's getting delayed. I think this is what is playing on the markets for the time being, because of which we are seeing that weakness. But once that comes in, I think we will see another good rally, which possibly could take us to new highs, and that could see the small cap and the mid caps again possibly outperforming.
Right. Of course, there is valuation concern in the mid-cap and the small-cap space that you are talking about, Mr. Baliga. But there are also mixed views coming from the US on the final decision of the Fed to go ahead and cut rates or not cut rates. And of course, there is also this theory of the AI bubble, for which again, there are days that you see US stocks performing really well, and there are days you see massive corrections. So even on the global side, there seems to be some sort of uncertainty which could potentially not give direction to investors. And that story continues to weigh in on India as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, in fact, that is also weighing on India, but thankfully, the sort of AI bubble which everyone's been talking about was expected to burst anytime. But then, I mean, the sort of earnings which came from Nvidia, I think that has delayed that at least by a quarter or more.
Okay.
So I think, I mean, we'll have to keep a close watch when the December earnings are announced, which should be sometime by February.
Right.
That's the time, I mean, we could see some issue as far as the AI space is concerned. But leaving that aside, like I said, in case we have the treaty falling in place,
Yeah.
I think Indian markets can perform. Otherwise, one will have to wait for the sort of Q3 numbers, which again I expect them to be decent,
Right.
and possibly a positive surprise, because the way
Because of
Q2
the GST cuts.
absolutely. I
Right.
mean, the whole consumption story, I think, should play out in Q3, and
Right.
that I mean, we should see that in black and white in the earnings of Q3.
Absolutely. And what are the growth figures for Q2, the GDP numbers being factored in right now? Because S&P, of course, has given a bullish sentiment. In fact, annual growth expected at 6.5%. But overall, there seems to be a good sort of expectation from the Q2 GDP numbers, which are expected to be released on Friday. So have markets already priced in? No surprises, no shocks there.
No, I mean, when we see that in black and white, possibly we could see some reaction, because we've seen the
Okay.
markets overall being weak for the last couple of days. I mean, in case it's a positive surprise, you can see a bump up.
All right. We may see a bump up if there's a positive surprise on GDP numbers. I also want to talk to you this morning about Asian stocks, and Asian stocks seem to be doing much better, in fact outperforming India when it comes to news, especially between US President Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, who are expected to meet in April. And we are seeing a massive reaction of that on the Chinese markets this morning. And then of course the Wall Street knock-on effect on rest of Asia seems to be a lot stronger than on India. So why do you see that sort of decoupling that India has with rest of Asia this morning?
No, I mean, in addition to the reasons which I just discussed, I think the other major factor could be the liquidity being sucked out by the IPOs. I mean, we have had huge number of IPOs in the recent past,
Yeah.
and I mean, a decent amount of liquidity has been sucked out by these IPOs. So I
Right.
think that's also playing out on the market.
All right. And of course, there is more IPO rush, about 30,000 crore rupees worth of IPOs again lined up for the month of December. Is there going to be more sucking out of liquidity? And is that going to again sort of keep Indian markets in a more guarded space?
Absolutely, because on one side you have liquidity being sucked out, and on the other side, when you have portfolios bleeding, I mean it's typically it's the psychology which plays out that when my portfolio is bleeding, I'll not possibly invest fresh,
All
and
right.
that's exactly what is playing out. I mean across retail and the HNI space.
All right, Mr. Baliga, thank you so much for your input and for adding clarity to this fairly confused state that one sort of finds every morning charts when they look at them and themselves in. So thank you so much for adding that little dose of clarity for all of you this morning.